If you're on medication, treating depression, continue with your medication. This is a journey that requires a lot of sobriety. Having said that, I'd like to challenge some of your paradigms tonight in a way perhaps you did not expect. The reason I'm saying this is because a lot of people believe depression is like any other disease, just like malaria or typhoid. I beg to differ and boldly suggest this is an idea propagated by the mammoth pharmaceutical industry and some medical doctors, especially in a certain professional field. First, where is the mind? Because if the mind was physical, like the blood system or your heart, or like your brain, and secondly, if depression was caused by pathogens, and there are 5 categories of pathogens: viruses, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and worms, then I'll never write or speak on this subject prescriptively. But the real question remains, where is the mind, or what is the mind? We may even need to interrogate at what point did we surrender such a delicate societal concern to medical practitioners alone. That a craft has been done and practiced over the years by professionals doesn't justify it or even its continuity. Dr. Lydia Kahn and Nate Patterson, in their book Quackery, The Worst Ways of Curing Everything, they describe in minute details how medieval doctors would press a sacrificed puppy or kitten or lamb or rabbit on a cancerous tumor, believing the cancer was like a ravenous wolf which would prefer to feed on the sacrificed animal than on the human patient. In that particular book, they have described various bizarre treatments that doctors used to use that have now been busted. And they used to believe they're legit, but they are overtaken by time. And challenging conventions is not just in the medical field, but it's across board. For instance, for centuries, we believe that the earth is flat and it's at the center of the earth. Scientists who suggested that the earth is spherical and is not necessarily at the center of the earth, people like Galileo Galilei, were castigated in public, at times even arrested by then custodians of knowledge, purporting that these are people who are spreading and propagating heretical teachings. You see, you don't see the world as it is. You see the world as your instruments allow you. Galileo Galilei's worldview was premised on superior instruments. In 1609, he had developed his telescope that gave him a magnification of 9 times. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as your lenses can permit you, as your lenses can allow you. And tonight I want to invite you to do away with inferior lenses and climb to a higher ground where you can begin to see from superior mental magnification. Because while we get uncomfortable with new information, new behavior can only come from new thinking. And why I like quoting the law of gravity, it is perhaps the most known law in the universe. It's a reality we cannot deny. But the reason planes are able to get airborne is because there's a superior law, the law of aerodynamics. If you do not appreciate the law of aerodynamics, you'll always be grounded by gravity. When you don't recognize higher principles, you'll be a subject of inferior laws. As often said, knowledge is power. And you know the enemy controls you to the degree of your ignorance. So I want to suggest at this early stage of this momentous presentation, never take any advice as gospel truth, not even what I'm teaching you tonight. You are a thinking being. Interrogate what you hear. Ponder over it, research over it. But don't disregard someone before you give them a hearing. The highest form of ignorance is disagreeing something that you do not fully understand. Don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Do not allow anyone to interfere with your quest, your search for the truth. When you hear new information, process it. Listen to it keenly against timeless truths. If it challenges your norms and your conventions, then change your behavior. I'm saying this because while many doctors have good intentions, there are some in their midst who've turned this noble calling into a business that knows no bounds. Make no mistake, medical science is not on trial tonight. The point I'm driving home is this: depression is not a prerogative of the few, chosen few in the society to disalienate the rest of us from dealing this subject. We must speak about depression in our churches, in our homes, in our places of work. And by the way, this beautiful morning, I had a joint session for Liberty Insurance Company and Heritage Insurance Company of all staff members, including their two MDs, speaking about depression just this morning. And I encourage every single company to deal with this subject. Why is that? Why should we talk and learn about depression? First, you can live with someone who is depressed and you're not aware. No matter how transparent someone may be, they haven't told you everything. No matter how open someone may seem, they haven't disclosed everything to you. And you can be so close to someone and they still don't share with you what they're feeling. This need not be your fault. They were conditioned long ago to step up everything to themselves, to deal with their inner struggles and feelings, because while they were growing up, someone mistrusted them. They shared their insecurities and feelings, and they were not trusted. And Beatrice here in August talked about that age in life where we lose trust. So they have learned over the years not to share their worries, their concerns, their fears with anyone, because after all, who believes them? We belittle what they're going through. But second and more important, we need to learn about depression for our own good. You cannot get others out of the pit where you live. The first step towards conquering any enemy is identifying the enemy. Your enemy is not your spouse. Your enemy is not your boss. Your enemy is not the banker and the auctioneer who is selling your house. Your enemy is not even a terminal sickness. Your enemy is not your ex. Your enemy is not your past. Your enemy is not a child who calls you names. Your enemy is not that child who has ignored to support you. And the challenge is this: you can be depressed ignorantly without realizing. You can even reach the top of your career and still be depressed. Elijah the Tishbite, at the very peak of his career, after slaying 450 prophets of Baal, 450 prophets of Jezebel, a messenger was sent by Jezebel, and she swore by her gods, by tomorrow evening, Elijah will not be alive. And the man flew for his life. I thought Elijah should have known. He destroyed Jezebel's spiritual support. I thought Elijah should have known that God had already judged Jezebel. After such a demonstration of God's power, he caused rain. He led the largest revival in his generation. He was running away from this woman. And by the way, if you check the Bible closely, that was the end of his career. He took a journey, 40 days in the wilderness, and God told him to anoint his successor, Elisha. He gave up the fight and began to pray, "Take my life. I can't handle it any longer." After the triumphant exit from Egypt, the greatest manifestation of God's power through mere mortal hands, Moses was confronted by approximately 2.4 million people in the wilderness demanding for food. And he said, "I've had it enough." This is after a great victory over Pharaoh and Egypt. "I've had enough. Take my life. I can't handle the misery any longer." After God giving a testimony about Job, the most righteous man on the face of the earth, the richest man in the East, equivalent to Jack Ma today. Job, after losing his children, after his wealth and health failed him, the wife disowned him, he ruled the day he was born and wished he was a stillbirth. In plain language, wished he was never born. We see the same with Jonah the prophet and Jeremiah telling God to kill me. But maybe as you listen to me, you're saying, "Doc, those are medieval stories. I can't relate with that." Can you get more relevant? Hold your peace. I'm coming there. How would you behave if you lost the love of your life? Then you remarry and you end up marrying a nutcase who abuses you day and night. You lose your 2 sons. You lose 8 elections. And after finally you get elected to the highest office in the land, the country is torn by civil war. After 4 grueling years of trying to keep the country intact, fighting with a coup d'etat, after restoring the peace of a nation, they finally assassinate you. Yes, I understand why Abraham Lincoln throughout his life suffered clinical depression. In World War II, the fall of Europe was imminent. The entire Europe looked up to Britain for their salvation. What a shame. The Prime Minister of Britain, Neville Chamberlain, resigned. And Winston Churchill decided to take on the challenge head-on. Most historians agree with me tonight. He almost single-handedly saved Christian civilization and the world. What a great man. You know, America and Russia came at the tail end of the war. But for such a great hero, larger than life, hear what he says. Hear what Churchill says. Depression follows me like a black dog. You know, you can make the money and still be depressed. You see, money is not a resultant of inner tranquility, harmony between your mind, soul, and heart. Money is a resultant of solving people's problems consistently, persistently, with focus, determination, and hard work, even by entrepreneurs who are hurting on their inside. A 48 beautiful lady went to a psychiatrist. She was fighting depression. Told the psychiatrist her problems, and the psychiatrist said, before I prescribe any other treatment, I've got some good news for you. Tonight, in this beautiful city, Whitney Houston is performing. I suggest go for her performance first, and then come back, and then we pick it up from there. The young lady looked at the psychiatrist and said, but doc, I am Whitney Houston. I'm sorry I created the story. But the point is this, 2 days after she committed suicide 2 days before her performance. Last year, 17th of November, 2017, UK Minister of Children and Communities, Carl Sargent, some of you might remember, committed suicide. He hanged himself after his Labour Party decided to excommunicate him on allegations of sexual misconduct. The list is endless for celebrities, billionaires, heads of states and government who've committed suicide. In fact, people, great men who conquered the world but could not conquer their own fears, like Adolf Hitler. In fact, in the last 100 years, 31 heads of state and government took away their lives, and tonight, I want to show you 6 of them.